Hello and welcome to Open Treasure, the Museum of Durham Cathedral. My name's Marie-Therese and I'm the exhibitions officer here. One of the wonderful parts of my job is to look after some of the extraordinary items that are in the cathedral's collections, and these are two of my favourites. They're part of the treasures of St Cuthbert, the relics that were recovered from his tomb when it was opened in 1827. These two items are particularly interesting and significant because traditionally they were believed to have been owned and used by St Cuthbert during his lifetime. There's an inventory, a list of objects, relics associated with the saint, which was made when his coffin was moved into the new Norman cathedral in 1104. And it lists everything that was in the coffin with the incorrupt saint. These items were on a little shelf inside, an ivory comb and a portable wooden altar. The wooden altar is now in two pieces. The piece on the right is the altar itself. It's made of oak wood and it's engraved with 5 crosses, one in each corner, and there would have been one in the centre. We can just see a tiny little bit remaining of that. And it's dedicated to St Peter. There's an inscription on there which tells us that. It's a portable, consecrated space. It's small and light enough that it could be easily carried, and it's the sort of thing that a priest in the early medieval period would have carried with him as he travelled from village to village ministering to his flock. Fixed altars were stone, very heavy, immovable. This was portable. It could be set up on a table or a convenient flat stone in the landscape, and that area was immediately a consecrated space that could be used to celebrate the Mass. When Cuthbert was considered to be a saint after his death, this, having been an object directly linked to him, used during his lifetime, became particularly significant. And it's at that time it was given a silver casing in order to mark it out as something a little bit more special. The fragments remaining of that are what you can see on the left. We've mounted them up on a wooden block to show how they would have covered the original altar. But interestingly, the design on that doesn't really bear any close resemblance to the design on the altar itself. There's a roundel showing the image of a saint, very similar to ones you get in illuminated manuscripts. And probably this shows St Peter. Again, sadly, it's too fragmented really now to tell for sure. But as the altar was dedicated to St Peter, that would be a sensible link to make. It's certainly something that was regarded as being a doubly holy object, a consecrated object, but also something that had been handled and used by a saint during his lifetime. Very powerful. The other item in this case is something very normal, very unassuming. It's an ivory comb. The first thing that strikes you about this item is how big it is. It's absolutely huge. It's made of ivory, probably from an elephant, an African elephant. There are 40 thin teeth on one side, 16 thick teeth on the other, and a large hole, a thumb hole, in the middle. Now, comb designs didn't really change much over the centuries, but the comb was definitely listed in that 1104 inventory as having been something owned and used by Cuthbert. We know that there were very similar designs of combs coming from the 7th century, which have been found in Coptic Egypt. So again, it's entirely possible. It also demonstrates wonderfully the trading links that were around the world in that time. Many people think that during the 6th, 7th, 8th centuries, communities were very isolated, no one travelled. nothing could be farther from the truth. There was a great exchange of ideas, of objects, of culture. People travelled, people brought things back with them. There were trade links, there were trade routes. This comb typifies so many of those characteristics. It's also typical of the kind of comb that would have been used by a priest, a liturgical comb, as part of their preparations, making sure they were properly purified and prepared before they celebrated Mass. So it's entirely possible that it is something that Cuthbert owned and used. What we definitely do know, though, is that it was in use in the early 10th century by one of Cuthbert's great followers, Alfred Westow. He was a monk here at Durham Priory, and he was the keeper of the shrine. So he was in charge of looking after Cuthbert's tomb and making sure that everything was in order whenever important visitors came. When there were great festivals or, say, royal pilgrims coming, it was common for Cuthbert's coffin to be opened and the incorrupt body of the saint would be displayed for public viewing. But before that happened, Alfred would quietly go in, open up the tomb, take out this comb, use it just to tidy up Cuthbert's hair and his beard, make sure he was looking his best before the important visitors came. And we know that because one of Alfred's fellow monks wrote about it in a history of Durham just a few years later. It's a wonderful story which I think really brings to home the humanity not only of Cuthbert himself but of the people who have lived and worked here over the centuries. We hope that when you come and join us in Open Treasure, you'll be able to find out some more of those stories too. Thank you.